Moving on to the presentation by Mayor Papenfuss. Mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. I will just tell the public that we are going to be going before the Susquehanna Township Board of Commissioners on Thursday of this week. We've already been to the Harrisburg School Board and been well received. And we wanted to share with you and all three of the governing bodies that are critical to making this composting facility possible a short 10-minute video, which actually takes you to the site and I think is really useful for getting a sense of where we're locating and why we're locating there. And then Ron Taylor, our Parks Maintenance Director, would like to take you through, again, just a short PowerPoint after that, which shows you the details about the proposed permit. Our plan would be, after we incorporate one final round of public comment, to submit to DAP in the new year, sometime in January of 2018 for this site. And with that, also I should say that this information will all be on the city's website. We just tried it. It's easy to navigate. If you go to the main page of harrisburgpa.gov and you just simply type compost plan into the search engine, it'll take you right to this page. You'll be able to see the PowerPoint again, see the video, and you can comment as well and leave your comments, and those will go directly to us at Public Works and we can incorporate them. Okay, so I'll turn the lights off briefly for the video portion. Hi everybody, I'm Mayor Eric Papenfuss and I'm joined today by the Parks Maintenance Director for the City of Harrisburg, Mr. Ron Taylor.
How you doing?
We are at the site of our proposed composting facility for the City of Harrisburg. And if you look around at the great expanse behind us, you'll see a pleasant rolling field, and the compost site basically goes up to the ridge line there, and over to our left, and then to a fence here on our right.
I thought that there were homes directly around this site that might be in the path of bad fumes or something.
I think you've already mentioned two misconceptions about this site, Ron. The first is that somehow we're in a residential neighborhood, and the answer is we're not.
Right.
We're actually very appropriately situated in a little bit of an industrial stretch here. CRW is located to our right. DGS owns the grounds over there. And this is basically a field. The closest home is over 1,000 feet away beyond the ridgeline and beyond the tree line. It is way, way back there.
So there are no homes?
There aren't. There are not only no homes, but I don't think anyone could possibly hear us, even if we screamed as loud as we could.
Let's try it.
Hello! Ho! Ho! There's just no way. There's no way. But it's not just about the homes. There are other misconceptions about this site, and I think we ought to clear them up. What's another misconception from your perspective?
Misconception I got was that we were going to be composting animal parts and food waste.
Yeah.
Is that true, Mayor?
It's not. It's not. The only things that people are going to see when they come here are going to be leaves, maybe some grass clippings, some yard waste, tree branches, that sort of thing. But no food. No food of any sort. So that's positive. And I'll note at our feet, Ron, I'm going to bend down. There are leaves all over. And you know what they're doing? They are naturally composting.
Composting is a natural process that's sped up by human activity. So composting, as we know it at a municipal site, does not occur in nature. So it's basically enhanced by making piles of organic material and allowing the microorganisms to decompose the material in a much quicker manner than it does in nature. So it's basically a natural process that's sped up by humans.
So what we're planning to do is basically create several rows of leaf piles. And every once in a while, the only equipment that's really used for this composting is a turner that'll come in and turn those leaves. And then eventually, naturally, they will have broken down, released the carbon dioxide, released the water naturally back into the ground. And we'll have a wonderful product that people can use for home gardening and fertilizer and whatever they want to do.
You could put it in writing now, but maybe 5 years from now, you could change and start composting food byproducts. Is that a possibility?
It's not a possibility because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be applying for a permit from DEP, and that permit is going to say exactly what we can do. and what we can't do. So it's going to say that we can compost leaves, but it's not going to say that we can compost food waste or anything along those lines. And if we were to ever change, our permit would be invalid, we'd be in violation, and they would clamp down on us hard.
In Pennsylvania, there are over 400 sites that are approved by the Department of Environmental Protection. Composting is regulated under the municipal waste regulations of Pennsylvania, which DEP is required to enforce. And they have a number of regulations that do control the composting activities.
We're also going to protect the people in another way. We're going to do an intergovernmental agreement between Susquehanna Township and the city of Harrisburg, which basically pledges that what we're applying for is all we're going to do. And we'll extend that out for decades. So we're not going to change the size of our composting site. We're not going to change the use of our composting site. We can't do it because of the permit, but we'll also put it in writing as a sort of intergovernmental agreement with Susquehanna Township.
So basically what you're saying is you're coming up with a win-win-win proposal. The city of Harrisburg wins, the people in the community win because we eliminate a dumping site, the EPA and the earth benefit, and the children benefit because they get a learning facility.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think the benefit to the environment really can't be understated. I mean, right now, historically, a lot of the yard waste in the city of Harrisburg, since we haven't had our own facility and people haven't really been educated about it, a lot of times that's sort of gets mixed in with trash. It gets burned at the incinerator. It's not naturally recycled like in a composting process.
Taking organic waste out of the waste stream is a positive right there. Keeping it from being landfilled or incinerated, reduces our, economically your lower tip fees for not disposing of it. Keeping organic material in landfills can produce methane-producing gases, and if it's not handled correctly, that can be released to the atmosphere. The compost itself, the manufacturing of compost, is a agricultural product. It's a soil amendment. When added to soil, it improves the soil in many ways.
And in fact, you're going to have a wonderful sort of environmental science field program here, which we're going to be able to bring students to. Imagine students from the Harrisburg School District and elsewhere coming and learning about the carbon life cycle, learning about composting. They want to recycle. They want to be good stewards in the environment. This is sort of the next step. Now we have this field laboratory, so to speak, where people can come and they can learn about the environment. And so that benefit is huge.
What about the illegal dumping?
Actually, what's occurring right now is that there is illegal dumping because the site really isn't being looked after. The city is going to come in and we're going to fence it, we're going to maintain it, it's going to look beautiful, and we'll prevent things from some of the illegal dumping that you'll see if you walk around this site. So we're actually going to improve this. And the other thing we're going to do is we're going to maintain the green space buffer that exists between the composting site and the homes, which is really important. There's going to be a natural green space. It's really a good location, and it's basically underutilized, so why not do something positive? We are now at the other end of the proposed composting facility. If you look down towards the car and the gate there, that's where we were standing.
Right.
And we are now all the way in the outfield. And you can see 5 acres, not that large a space, big enough to do what we want to do with the windrows and the leaves. But we're certainly, even at this end, very far from any neighboring homes. It's quiet. There's a natural buffer and a natural ridge which runs along the back here, blocking anything out.
Well, where are the homes? I can't see any homes.
You won't be able to see the homes for hundreds more feet until we were to go over that ridge.
So if we can't see them, then they wouldn't see the facility.
No, they wouldn't see us. There's a misconception about traffic that somehow all of our trucks with leaves would be going through the neighborhood.
Right.
That there is no need for any Harrisburg truck to go through any neighborhood in Susquehanna Township at all. And we were going to have the trucks basically go from the Harrisburg neighborhoods where they're picking up the leaves to Cameron, to the bypass to here, to avoid unnecessarily going through Harrisburg's
driving route that we follow.
Yeah, but also organized, centralized, and done in an appropriate manner. This area, which is sort of the size of a baseball field, we're basically in a baseball field, That's where we would put in the rows of the leaves and have a small mulching and grinding operation. The only thing that is being fenced in is essentially the grassy area that we see going down to the car and to the gate. What I'd like to do now, Ron, is walk you next door to this lot and show you what the Department of General Services has done right next door. They've established a composting facility. So we are literally a 30-second walk from the entrance to the composting facility. I can throw a baseball to home plate, so to speak, from here. And this is the area where DGS has already a composting site. It's fenced, it's old. Ours would look, I think, a lot nicer than this, but you get the general sense of what's happening. You have a series of piles, former windrows of what is now sort of composted material. Another misperception that happened was that people were saying, well, nobody's going to want to live near a composting facility, right? It's going to depress property values. But in fact, in Camp Hill, some of the nicest homes anywhere in central Pennsylvania are the neighbors.
Yeah.
What was the reaction when we took residents to the facility?
Everyone was surprised. They looked at the homes. They couldn't believe that homes that nice and that cost that much were within a rock's throw of a composting facility, an open and thriving and working composting facility.
And in fact, the neighbors like living. They want it. They think it's a great benefit. It's a boom. It's actually an economic benefit that will increase property values because people want to live in areas where composting and the environment are taken seriously.
That means that you're living in an ecologically efficient area.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not aware of any incidents or concerns about health from compost sites. As I said, there's over 400 sites in Pennsylvania. I have not heard of any issues arising from the compost, health issues.
Composting done correctly doesn't really have byproducts that are detrimental to the earth because it's comprised, and the process is very different than landfills. You're not just creating a pile of something and not doing anything with it to facilitate the breakdown of it. With composting, you're actively working the material that leads to your end product.
We promote this industry. We just did a large economic impact study of recycling in Pennsylvania, and there's huge numbers economically. 66,000 people employed in Pennsylvania because of recycling. Over 600 organic sites, not just composting, but mulch producers, people that recycle wood and woody vegetation into mulch, as well as the compost sites. A lot of jobs in Pennsylvania because of recycling and composting.
Of course, again, this land is owned by the school district. Yep. We are in Susquehanna Township. We're on the edge of the city, and so it's going to require cooperation for all three of those entities. But if we work together, we can create something great.
Council members, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it. As most of you I've spoken with before already know, I'm from Chicago, and we've worked on composting facilities for years there, and it's always been a viable part of the city's overall growth and development and the economic planning. One of the first projects that I was introduced to when I came here by the boss over there, Mr. Johnson, and by the mayor, was the composting project that was going on. Apparently there was a little bit of misunderstanding in regards to what the city was trying to do in regards to the composting facility. Hopefully with the speakers that we brought on and brought into the film and with this presentation, we'll put aside those fears and belay those fears and get people to understand that what we're trying to do is a win-win-win, as I said in the film, for everyone. So this is a quick presentation that is going to transpire after the screening of the film, and we're going to deal with some of the changes that we've made and where we're growing and how we've grown the composting facility and the idea or the thought of putting it together. Next slide. Questions? So we're at the end.
So in this slide, you can see the lighter area on the outside is the entirety size of the HSD-owned acreage in the facility. So they own approximately 41 acres. We're taking 5 acres, and there are a total of 13 acres outside that we have overall leased, but we're only using 5 acres for the composting facility. And what we're doing with that other 13 areas is allowing a buffer zone so that ecologically you still have your natural plant growth there, and you also have your natural bug and or bird life. One of the gentlemen that went out with us was very concerned that there were a number of butterflies, monarch butterflies, that fly and land there every year. And so that space, we've made sure that that green space is there to allow for the development of those and the continued development of those species. Also, what you might note is that with that green buffer zone inside the space that we're totally occupying, there is a long distance, and at the top is the road where you would see those homes. I kept asking the mayor, where are the homes? Because you really can't see them. It's that far. So we are not endangering anyone with putting the composting facility together. And as the gentleman said in the video, there are over 400 composting facilities in Pennsylvania right now, and no one's ever complained about anything, even those that live right on top of it. Next slide, please. So what we're proposing is a composting facility that uses only leaf waste, garden waste, yard waste, tree trimmings, and shrubbery. That's it. No food, no dead animal carcasses, no raccoons, no lunchroom leftovers turned in to make composting that's derived from more of a energized source, shall we say. But this is all natural. And if you note at the bottom, Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection does not allow food waste under this permit, and we'll get into the permit in the next slide, next 2 slides. So earlier you saw this map, and it was a little confusing, but now you can see the general outline of what the composting facility will look like. The round circles at the top are piles of composted leaf, yard, and tree waste, and the round circles at the bottom are composted piles that are ready for people to come out, pick up, and carry out. You can also see at the very top, there's a large area or a long area that is that open space and that green space where we're going to have an opportunity for kids to also get a better understanding of how composting transpires and what's involved in it. If you look down here at the very bottom, you'll see a square, and that's the training facility that we're going to put within the composting facility so that the children can have a place to come and actually learn about composting. The entire area obviously is fenced in, and that adds for security, and that does eliminate the illegal dumping that we did see numerous occasions of going out there. Next slide, please. So the site is designed to compost approximately 5,500 cubic yards of waste. Now, this is the part that I'm sure you'll be the most interested in. The city of Harrisburg generates 544 tons of leaves. 2016, that's what we did, 544 tons. If we had burned that, we're paying $190 a ton. That's almost $133,000 a year that you would spend just getting rid of natural yard waste. So it's imperative that we have a composting facility of our own, a composting facility that allows us economically to continue to move forward, and that takes away from us having to increase taxes, having to increase waste fees, or having to derive any other resources from where they're presently going into waste management. Next slide, please. These are the conditions of operations, and you know, I can go through and read them, but they're pretty much what we had spoken of when we were in Susquehanna. We're going to operate the facility under a WMG M030 permit, and you'll learn a little bit more about that permit. That permit, again, specifically states that you cannot use compost anything other than natural yard waste, trees, leaves, and shrubbery. That's it. That's what the permit allows. And if we violate the permit, then we're out of luck. And obviously at $133,000 a year, we don't want to come back and talk to you about how we lost our permit. Next slide. This is this general slide, and as you can tell, I kind of like pictures. I like aerial views. But this view gives you an opportunity to see the composting facility and the road in the back, and you can finally see where the homes are located at the horizon at the very end up there. So we've placed the composting facility in a ecologically, environmentally friendly place. So we found that we spent a lot of time looking at different sites, and this came out to be the absolute perfect. And if you note the speakers, the guest speakers that spoke, one being from Penn State, one owning their own composting facility, both noted how good a facility and good a space this was for composting because of the amount of space that it leads out to before you actually meet any living space. Next. Okay. So the next thing is about stormwater, and there were concerns and questions in regards to the stormwater because anytime you do anything, obviously, you're going to have water leakage. Well, the facility is designed to have a 3-tier filtration system, a sock system, a drainage system which leans westward, which would lean down and into a sock system, and then into a natural drainage system, 2-ply. Natural drainage system is obviously natural plants, and then the water drains naturally into the ground, in the soil. So it is filtered and is at the bottom it says that it's part of best management practices. So we've put together a program that goes above and beyond what the BEPA has told us they require for composting facilities. So we've done everything that we can to ensure that the facility is safe, it's clean, and that it operates efficiently. And if you look at the posters to the right, those are that's the type of signage that we're planning on putting around the facility for the student involvement in activities in learning about composting. After we did the composting meeting for the Harrisburg Board of Education, I got a number of questions and people that came to me to ask, are there going to be opportunities for people to learn more about composting? And absolutely. Are there going to be opportunities for people to be involved and perhaps have internships working at the composting facility? Absolutely. Because, again, we're doing this and we want to do it, and we are doing it in the right way to ensure that kids learn something about it, whether it's urban gardening, whether it's how you go about composting to do urban gardening, whether it's learning more about the natural environment that surrounds them. This composting facility and what we're doing is a viable part of Harrisburg moving forward in an environmentally friendly and ecologically friendly way. Next slide. So again, this goes into the permit, and I can go through and read, but that's boring, and we've got a long night ahead of us, so I'll kind of skip through that. But this is basically talking about the application that we put in, and the fact that the application, we've already tested the ground to ensure that there is no endangerment to any animal life, plant life, or insect life in that within the area for the composting facility. So we've made sure that we're not violating any life, any natural habitats or natural transition paths for any insects and or animals in that area. We've also put in for testing for environmental air quality to ensure that the quality of the air, once the composting facility is up and running, meets and or exceeds DEPA standards. So we've exceeded best practices again in putting together a facility that's a win-win for everyone. Next slide, please. Moving forward, we've also agreed to sign an agreement with the township specifying that we will not use anything other than natural grass, leaves, trees, plants, and bushes. But again, it's in our permit. We're signing a note. So we're doing everything possible that we can to ensure that they understand that we're doing this in the right way. And that's what Harrisburg is about, doing things in the right way. Next slide. So this is direct language from the permit. I pulled this right from the authorization in the permit, and if you look at it, you see that it clearly states what can be used in the composting facility. It also clearly states that if you endanger any citizens of the Commonwealth in any way with this facility, then your permit will be revoked and facility will be shut down. So we are ensuring that we're going to do exactly what is required of us to operate a user-friendly, a people-friendly, and an earth-friendly composting facility. Next slide. So as I said, I like pictures, so we'll get back to this one. This is an aerial view, so you can actually see in that center section, that kind of baseball section, that's the area that the composting facility would exist in. Where if you look about midway up, that's where me and the mayor were standing when we walked out into the facility. As you can see, there's still another 100 yards or 100 feet or so beyond that before you see the rise of homes. And then everything down on the front side of it is industrial complex. So not endangering anyone, and definitely in a very viable and very eco-friendly spot for composting. Next slide, please. I said I like pictures. So this one is this slide. If you look at the where you see the arrow at the circle, that's where the composting facility is going to be. The space directly above it is where the old school was. So you see where the school was in comparison to the facility, in comparison to the neighborhood and/or community. Next slide. So I'm a bit of a nerd, and Wally tried to grow a plant with limited resources, but composting helps him do it. It also helps. It's great for urban gardening. Next slide. Are there questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, I will. Wait, sir. I'm going to start to my right. Mr.
Yeah. Could you maybe walk through the process of how you reached out to constituents to explain the process and what was done to inform them of composting and how it worked? I thought this was helpful. It gave a lot of information. However, to be candid, when I first attended a meeting that the mayor was at, there wasn't this kind of presentation there. So I know that a lot of constituents were kind of confused and didn't really understand the process.
Yeah. Some of that predates your coming. Yeah, we've taken this process very seriously, and over the past months, we've had a number of different meetings at the neighborhood level, both in Harrisburg and in Susquehanna Township, slowly but surely incorporating feedback. I will admit that when we originally launched the concept for the composting facility, we did not anticipate the level of concern and the need for as much education about composting as was clearly necessary. So we sort of rebooted, restarted, and this permit application, which hasn't been submitted yet, is really the result of hours and hours of feedback and concern. And I think it's been a very helpful, very positive process, and slowly but surely we've brought a lot of people on board. We've gotten a lot of contacts, a lot of numbers. And I will stress that even now, we have not submitted anything to DEP. So if people would like to comment, the easiest way to comment is to go to harrisburgpa.gov, type in compost plan, and you can comment right there on the city's website, and those comments will go directly to us in Public Works, and there's still time to incorporate. But we feel we've incorporated just about every concern having to do with stormwater management, having to do with whether or not there would be food waste, because initially that was contemplated and then it was ruled out given the feedback from the public. Traffic, size, all of those things have been slowly but surely worked through. And again, Thursday night, we're going to go back to Susquehanna Township. They've advertised the meeting, and we'll see what the reception and turnout is. I'm hopeful it's going to be much more positive this time because we've really spent the time to lay the groundwork.
And according to DEP regulations, we are required to have a composting site, correct? Or we will have to pay some
yes.
a fee?
So right now, we are at the mercy of Swadera Township. Currently, is where we take a fair number of our lease. We don't have the ability to control our own destiny. We have to do it. We're not allowed to incinerate it. We wouldn't. There's no landfill option. Not that that would be a good one, and we really need this. And we did an exhaustive search of property within the city and also on the outskirts of the city. In this case, controlled by the school district. And because of the situation, where it's located, its access, everything about this site was right. Out of the floodplain, we really feel like this is the best spot.
And let's say Thursday doesn't go well or the constituents push back significantly. Is there a plan B?
Well, I'm hopeful, and I said this before when we originally had the resistance from Susquehanna Township, that we would come back to them before anything was submitted, that we would take their feedback seriously, that we would adapt our permit accordingly, and we've done all of that. But ultimately, for this to be successful, we do need the cooperation of the township, the city, and the school district. I can say the school district is very excited. And it's not just the Harrisburg School District. Actually, the Susquehanna School District has reached out to us and is interested in educational opportunities for their district as well. And I think that will have a positive effect on the overall conversation. So we'll certainly come back to you and update you if things don't go as we hope they will. But I'm anticipating a much better reception this time.
That's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. Maston. Mr. Majors?
Yeah, I would brace yourself and some of your team members for some potential pushback. From the video, I could see the residents that are in that immediate area, regardless of, we're 1,000 feet away. They took an opportunity I had an opportunity to meet with some of them, and they voiced their concerns still, regardless of if it's 1,000 feet, 10,000 feet. I think for some of these residents, it may be one of those situations where they're not opposed to composting, they just don't want it in their neighborhood. So I just want to make sure that we're managing our expectations. It seems like we're trying to move in the right direction. We're answering your questions, but a lot of those residents still have some of those concerns. And if we can, dissuade them from, if we can help, move that process along, that'd be good. But I would still anticipate some of that. In addition, I think one of the things that they also brought up to me in a meeting I had with them was us changing the permit again. Because initially, as you mentioned, we were looking at the using food waste and working directly with the school district. And one of the questions I'm sure they're going to ask is, so they expressed to me that they feel like we just keep changing everything to try and get it done rather than having a solid plan initially. And then for me, it sounds good. So what's the control mechanism we're going to have to ensure there's not food waste in whatever composting, bags? Because, I take the time to personally to bag my leaves, and if someone were to start putting food waste in the middle of their leaves, how do we control to ensure that none of that gets into our mix?
Well, that's a good question. I would start by saying that originally we have not applied for anything yet. Originally, we did consider applying for a different permit. This permit clearly does not allow food waste, and we're going in the direction of applying for this particular permit in response to the feedback that we heard from the residents. So, and that's important. We also are putting in writing, as referenced there, for the township commissioners that we also do not intend and will not expand to anything which isn't permitted. So it's another level of reassurance. In terms of the controls for making sure that people aren't sneaking things in leaves, that's generally not a problem and hasn't been a problem throughout Pennsylvania in composting facilities, but I'm sure that's something that we can work to control against. It's not currently a problem. I think the degree to which you would have contaminated woody waste or leaves currently. I mean, maybe Aaron can address that. Yes, go. Yep, go ahead. Yep.
Thank you for this opportunity, Councilman. I want to just say this. You asked that question about the residents. Yeah, they get some pushback. But let me just, on the record, let me just set the record straight. Mayor's modest. I cut through the chase. The bottom line is this. The commissioners basically didn't tell the truth to their constituents. That's what they didn't do. because we have been in contact with them prior to us wanting to do this composting site. They stated that they never talked to the city of Harrisburg. That's a lie. We had documentation, emails, and everything else, okay? But they had to save face, so be it. So we got the black eye for it. Now, mind you, DEP didn't do a good job of advertising that first meeting. So it made us look like the bad guys. They rushed them, hey, come to this meeting, we're gonna put a compost site in your area. That's where all the fallback came out, you know what I mean? That's where all that fallout came out. And it made us look like we didn't know what we was doing. What we didn't do, which we put out mailers all the time, and we know how to do it, we didn't issue out the information to the residents of Susquehanna like we wanted to. We relied on DEP thinking about that it was their show, but we got up there and got egg in our face. So that's where all the pushback came. So when we got up to that meeting, we got ambushed. So again, we took the food off the table, and again, the school district come because they're trying to save the trash bill. It makes sense. If they can get rid of the food waste, it's going to cut their bill. But I don't think John's here, but we got another method as far as how they can get rid of their food waste. But that's the truth of the matter. How that whole situation went. Okay, so now we took some residents from Susquehanna out there to Swat Township and showed them a composting site and things like that, and that went pretty well. Now, do I expect that no pushback on Thursday? Sure, because the bottom line is they don't want it in their area. Period. I don't care, because you got a composting site right there from the state. That's, again, a baseball throwaway. So it's been out there at least 12 years. Always been out there. You know what I'm saying? So they just don't want it out there. But how it all came about was it looked like we was trying to hide something, and we wasn't. Right. That's what really happened. Okay. So, but as far as your question about contamination with food getting into some of the bag, that happens. But what we would do is throw it in the trash, in the back of the trash truck, because it's contaminated. Okay. That's how we would handle it.
Everything coming into the facility will be monitored. That's part of the budget. So you're going to have someone there monitoring what comes in. It's not like it's going to run 24/7 operation. Facility will only be open during normal business hours, and someone will be there to monitor what comes in as far as yard waste and or leaves.
Okay, and then that's a perfect segue into my next question, which is the cost of the facility and any additional fencing. What would you be able to, for the public, just tell us what the cost would be as we're looking to move forward? With the training facility that we want to build for education, I'm sure there's going to have to be a place for an employee that's going to be out there, and then we were looking at additional fencing, correct?
The initial funding, the initial numbers that I've seen are looked at about $60,000 to get the facility up and running.
That includes the cost of the build out of the training facility and the fencing. Okay.
It wouldn't include the labor, which would be done in-house.
Right. So there won't be any additional cost associated with labor. It's just built into what we're doing with neighborhood services? Right.
We think we can staff it adequately with what we have.
Okay. And then, so we're looking at, we get in the city, you said 544 cubic yards a year? Hold on, make sure that.
554 tons.
Tons, excuse me, 554 tons.
Yes, sir.
All right. And then in cubic yards, how much is that? Since our facility, we're saying our facility can hold 5,500 cubic yards.
About 9,000 cubic yards, isn't it?
Robert,
on an annual basis, but the city collects about 5,500 cubic yards in a given leaf season.
All right. So the site will just be maxed out just on city, so we're not going to be looking at including anyone else from any other municipalities' leaf collection or yard waste.
Yeah. As designed, there's not room enough for anybody other than the city.
Okay.
And then we're going to be neighborly with Susquehanna, because we're right there, in the township. So.
Right, and they already have someone that they use for.
Yes, they already do.
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's all my questions for now. Thank you.
Mr. Major. Ms. Daniels?
Yes, can someone share the curriculum that will be used for at the compost site with us?
We've had some preliminary conversations with the school district, and we've agreed to form a task force with them. And John Rarick can share with you, you have them. Oh, good. We have examples of sample curricula used in other school districts and throughout the country for composting facilities. We can share those. But ultimately, it's up to the school district to determine the curriculum, and we will facilitate that and make the facility available. But so we're going to participate in the task force to develop that curriculum, and they're excited about it. I can tell you they received the same presentation well, and they're also fine with the revisions that have been made to the permit so far.
Okay, so for my edification, is the curriculum required before the permit is granted, or is the permit granted before the curriculum is determined?
It would not be required for granting of the permit. But it is something that we're committed to doing, and ultimately, we don't want a position where we're dictating the curriculum for the school district. That's not our.
Well, no, but my understanding is that the land has a covenant running with it.
That
right?
Ultimately, DEP is comfortable with the use that is being proposed and the potential for educational use as outlined.
But the covenant, I understand, is from the Department of Education, not Environmental Protection. Or am I wrong?
It's from DGS.
The covenant is from DGS.
DGS land curriculum. School, as it does every year, creates curriculum. They just have to make sure it's going to be put to educational purposes. It's not even right now. So this would move it in a direction it's not in at the moment. But we had in the original proposed agreement with the school district that both sides would honor that. And I think that gets revised once an actual permit has its parameters on it. But I don't think you can. I'm not sure if I checked any of that question, but I think why would they bring curriculum if there's no permit to put up a facility? So.
Also, we've spoken to DGS, and they're strongly supportive of this use for the site. So we're committed to working with the school district to establish the curriculum.
So you think that even if the curriculum doesn't meet whatever Department of Ed standards, that DGS would still allow the use of this land this way? So they would be willing to remove the covenant, basically, on the... Yeah,
well, as the solicitor mentioned, currently the land is not being used for educational purposes and hasn't been since the school was there. And it's not like DGS has moved to reclaim the land. So they would have to move to reclaim the land and say that it's not being used for educational purposes, and that's not going to happen because we're going to work to do it. I don't think having a Department of Education approved curriculum has anything to do with that.
Okay, that's it for me.
Thank you, Ms. Daniels. Let me follow up with that question and ask who's going to pay the salary for the teacher?
Oh, well, that would be the school district.
So they're going to accept the responsibility of providing
for the teaching, yeah.
The educator, okay.
Yeah, but we would we're opening the facility to the students, and we see us serving the same population. So it's a win.
Okay, Mr. Johnson.
So what do we need from Susquehanna Township? That's the ultimate question. What do we need from them?
The blessing.
And what does the blessing technically look like? What are we going to them asking them for?
So, well, we are going to provide them with this MOU, and we're asking them to sign off on the MOU. But ultimately, we need them not to challenge the. They are not. If DEP issues the permit, then DEP issues the permit. If Susquehanna Township wants to challenge it under zoning or under some other aspect of their regulations for Susquehanna Township, they could do that. But we don't want to have a battle that ends up in court over the zoning of a composting facility. So really, our goal is to do it through mutual agreement. And in other words, they don't really have to do anything, but if they were to object and to do something negatively, then that would be problematic. They don't have to do anything positively other than not object formally.
If I may add, I want to add something, how serious this is, okay? When we had these storms, right now we're in the wintertime, okay, these trees get to falling. Right now, we cleaned up all that where our staging area was at on South 19th Street, okay? We cleaned all that out, okay? Right now, when you got these large sticks, that we call them, we don't have nowhere to put them at. Ziegler Brothers been nice enough, not really nice enough because they making money off our sticks, okay? So that's where we take them at now, okay? We tried other sites, but most of the sites that's large enough are in the floodplain. So we don't have any more options. That's why our township says, we don't want you to bring no leaves here no more. We in trouble. It's just that simple. We the capital, but we don't have no compost in sight. Okay, so again, the food was an issue. Okay, like I said, it made it look like we was trying to backdoor somebody, but that's not true. I just explained to you exactly what happened. But we need this site. We need it for us to, be able to operate because we have nowhere to put anything. Okay, we reach out to our resources. Luckily, we have some resources so as to keep us going forward. But if everybody say, hey, you can't bring us here no more, we in trouble. So that's why it's very essential that, again, if anybody can talk to Susquehanna, we need to because we need this site. And again, everything's natural, and I understand the residents don't want it there because, again, they looking at it like this. And I'm just going to keep it real with you. They just saying, I'm tired of you putting stuff in the black neighborhood. That's basically what this is about. Okay, I understand it. Incinerator was down there. I used to live in Ivy Lake when I was a little dude. Okay, we had the same situation there. You know what I mean? This ain't the incinerator though. Some of the information that was given to them wasn't correct information. So again, but this is essential. We need this. We need it.
And I would say I was actually the first person, because I used to work for Susquehanna Township, so I actually got the first phone call about the composting site from a consultant that was working with the city during my last 2 weeks there. So actually, they called me and it was, I didn't tell anyone, but they called me and I told my superiors at that time that there was some interest inside that land. So there has been communication, and that was back in 2014, 15?
15.
Yeah, 15. That's when the consultant first called my office about it, because I was in charge as far as managing their composting site at Fort Hunter, where we just paid the guy. But I think the ultimate issue here is the fact that what possible benefit does the township get from having the composting site there? You see what I'm saying? As far as, it doesn't seem like they can contribute any leaves to this because we're at maximum capacity with our leaves, so that's what it is.
Okay. You figure where they take the leaves at now? Listen to them. They almost at full capacity where they take theirs at. Mm-hmm. Again, since it's in the township, they could utilize that. And
so that's my question. Is there opportunity?
So they've asked that question specifically. We've talked about we're going to make the compost available to their residents and our residents, so they can utilize the final product, the compost product. We are going to make the facility available to their school district as well as the Harrisburg School District, so educationally they can do that. And they can also get the general benefits to the environment, which are good for the region. I mean, we shouldn't be so siloed off that we don't think that a problem in Harrisburg doesn't affect the township and things like that. So those are real benefits.
So they're not, as far as them being close to maximum at their current facility, there's no possible shared opportunities for their
We originally thought that perhaps they'd be interested in a shared facility, and they weren't. Yep. So they have their facility, which is over by Fort Hunter. And that is what they want to do, and they were not interested in a combined facility. So we have shrunk the footprint to address the city and not Susquehanna Township, but that we can only do so much. If there's no willingness on Susquehanna Township's part, we can't say you must take your leaves to the facility. One other point, which is a good one that Aaron alluded to. So they don't have room for our leaves in Susquehanna Township, and then if you look at Swadera Township, we're basically year to year. They've been taking them because they can do it, but that's in a growing area. The population's growing. They're eventually going to run out of room, and that's when we have the problem. If we start having all these tons of leaves and no place to take them, and we end up having no alternative but the expense and the wrong answer of the incinerator, I mean and it was DAP initially, which said you have to find a facility. So we're doing everything that is right and appropriate, and we're doing our best to balance that with the concerns of the township. We don't think we're going to have 100% support, but like all things, if we can have the majority support, I think that ultimately will carry the day.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough I mean, I mean, I'm just because I worked there for so long, and I just know how things. It's going to be tough, so that's why I was asking directly, what do you need from them? But I don't have any more questions. I just.
Mr. Allett.
So just a quick follow-up to Cornelius's question. Statutorily, can they do anything to prevent it? Is it just, I mean, you're asking for their blessing. Is it like...
Well, I don't want to outline their strategy, but if the township doesn't want a composting facility there, sure. In the same way that city council could probably prevent something, but we don't want that. Honestly, we're trying to describe a win-win for everybody, the right thing for the environment, the right thing for the community. So we do not want to get to a battle, and we have tried very, very hard to get to a court battle. I mean, to tie up the permit in court or something like that. Do you want to talk legally, or just leave it at that?
I like the we will not give them a strategy.
Yeah, that's not a good sense.
And then another thing, we support Susquehanna Township. We have bucket trucks when they have hangers, branches hanging and all that. Guess who go out there and help them?
No, I know.
They don't lease anything. They call Public Works, and we go out there, which we are neighbors. I mean, we do the same thing with Pembroke. They ran out of salt last year. Okay, this is not in the newspaper. I'm putting it out there now.
No, I know.
But when the neighborhood, the surrounding area, they fall a little short. You know, everybody talk about Harrisburg, but Harrisburg helps everybody. Now,
right.
Could I reach out there and get that same kind of help? I don't know.
I know. I understand that part. I get completely. I mean, there's plenty of services even beyond what you all do that some of the areas do benefit from too. I hope that they do it. Honestly, you never know. It's another elected body.
Ms. Green, do you have any questions?
I think all of the questions have been answered so far. All the questions I have been asked already.
Okay, thank you. Before we start our budget and finance, I'm going to ask the public if they have any questions, and it will only be on the compost site presentation. So does anyone in the audience have any questions about the compost site? Just a minute.
I'm Dave Schumann. I feel real positive this effort to do this because you got to do the leaves somewhere, and I also know that branches and things like that, I bundle up and it goes in the trash truck. But I also know the leaves. We got a lot of leaves. And I believe that the new equipment of sucking it up, it's much more efficient from what I've seen today than it has been in the past. Next thing to me, being self-employed on my side, let's make some money from it. You know, topsoil, things like that. Turn positiveness about it. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.